sponsors in Qatar may look a little bit very straight process to some of you. However, something that you need to understand, there may be what you call financial and what you call the non-financial cost that may be incurred. Yes, most of you will agree with me. You've gone through this kind of costs which are financial and non-financial. However, to some that have been Yes, changing sponsorship or changing sponsors in Qatar may look a little bit very straight process to some of you. However, something that you need to understand, there may be what you call financial and what you call the non-financial cost that may be incurred. Yes, most of you will agree with me. You've gone through this kind of costs which are financial and non-financial. However, to some that have been able to get over it, I've gone over minus paying the cost. However, in this video, I want to share with you some of those financial costs and non-financial that definitely you may incur when you are going to change sponsor or you're changing sponsorship from one company to another. It will definitely depend on which kind of the employer or the sponsor that is going to take you. Let us try to look at those kind of hidden costs that you may incur. By the way, is it your first time to come across Mex? Don't hesitate to give him a subscribe button, and don't hesitate to follow his TikTok account and also the YouTube account. Share, like, comment. I'll be able to get back to you. Yes, let us try to look at change of sponsorship. Most of you benefited from change of sponsorship and change company, changing career. Yes, to some it has been a hassle, and to some of you it is still a very big hassle for you to change from one sponsor to another. However, something that I definitely need to let you know, as you are changing from one sponsor to another, yes, there are what you call hidden costs, or they are what you call financial and financial costs that you may incur that you definitely need to understand. Yes, in today's video, let me try to break down some of these hidden costs which may be incurred by changing sponsorship. One, let us try to look at processing and application fees. Most of you will agree with me that most of you, to some employer or to some sponsors, have definitely led you to bear what you call all the costs that are incurred that you have to pay them for yourself. Let us try to talk about people who are seeking to what you call freelancing visa, or you are changing from one company to freelancing, or you are changing from freelancing to a company. Yes, there are situations where you've come into what you call agreement with the person who's changing you or the sponsor to bear the cost. Let us try to look at what we call the processing and application fee. Let us try to look at first. Let us first look at what we call the transfer fee. Yes, when you look at the transfer fee by the government, depending, it can be between 2,000 to 5,000, depending on what you call the profession, and it also is going to be depending on what you call the sector. Then we have what you call medical and fingerprinting, if it is required again. To some few sectors, it may not be required. To some few sectors, you may be required to take back what you call new fingerprints and what you call to do what you call medical. So remember, in these situations, depending on how much it may be charged, it may be charged between 100 to 300 Qatar riyal. So that is also a financial cost that definitely need to prepare yourself well in advance to know that I'll be able to take care of this in case my sponsor, my new sponsor who's taking me, he does not have one to bear what you call the cost. Let us try to look at what you call QID renewal. Yes, QID renewal, depending on which kind of situation and which kind of sector, may take between 500 to what you call 1,000, depending on what you call the validity, the period, and also the employer. Yes, most of you will agree with me that are changing to freelancing visa. You've gone into this kind of situations whereby you are incurred, or you have to pay for the ID renewal, which may be maybe 1,000 or 1,200, depending on kind of the mutual agreement that both of you've been agreed upon. Let us try to look at also what you call translation, documentation, and certified translations. Yes, to some situation the contract may need what you call translations in one way or the other, and you find that the translation process for those maybe who've been going to government sector or any or the other, depending on the kind of the employer and depending on the kind of the requirement, you may find that the translation may take between 100 to 200, that is per page. However, still something that definitely I always tell you that before you think of changing sponsorship, let's say for example you're changing from one company to a freelancing company, the first thing that try to talk to the employer himself and see who is going to bear the cost of what you call the recruitment, the changing process. Who is bearing the cost? Are you bearing the cost or the employer is bearing the cost? In this case, you have 50-50, then definitely you should know how much you're going to contribute, such that financially you can be able to prepare yourself in that advance. Let us try to look at what we call delays, administrative bottlenecks. Okay, we look at these ones. Sponsorship approval, sometimes I always tell you, may take between 2 to 6 weeks or even longer, depending on who is applying for you and depending whether the requirements that are needed by what you call the government are all being submitted. So you find sometimes even what you call clearance from the current employer. Yes, most of you, your change of sponsorship has been delayed, you in one or the other, because the current employer has not been able to clear you up. Yes, some of you have got rejected messages, rejections all the time, and the current employer is rejecting your change in one or the other. However, there are also issues where you can go and appeal yourself. You try to get over that. Yes, we look at ministry, the labor ministry approval, which sometimes may be taking longer. Let's say for example the application was within what you call a weekend. You find it may be a little bit taking longer. Then we have what you call pending fines and legal issues. Let's say for example the company that is recruiting you at that period, who's changing you, has some legal issues, has some fines, or even yourself, if you have some fines somewhere, you may find that change of sponsorship may take a little bit very low. And you find that these are some of the kind of hidden costs that might be financial or non-financial, putting us along the process of what you call change. Let us try to look at what you call contractual consequences. Yes, if your current contract is non-compete, has what we call a non-compete clause. Yes, switching to a competitor might lead to what you call legal complications. Yes, most of you have told you about what you call the non-compete clause. Let's say for example, a good example I'll give is from security company to a security company. Yeah, those contracts that you've not gone through situations where they have what you call a compete clause, a non-compete clause, meaning that you cannot switch to the same competitor. Yes, most of you will agree with me who are working in delivery. You are switching from delivery, you are switching to Shunono, you are switching from the delivery, you're going to Talabat. Sometimes if that contract that you have has that clause, then you may not be able to change. It may have some legal implications, and even your current employer has the right to object in any way or the other. Let us try to look at if your employer claims that you violated the contract. Yes, some employers may reject you to change because you have violated what we call the contractual agreement. That's why I always keep on telling you that if you're planning to change your sponsorship in one way, first look at the contract. Look at the terms of the contracts that you have with that company, such that you don't go to what you call legal matters, or you don't portray to what you call legal matters with this company. No other. Let us try to look at if you're in that kind of situation. Some of you, you've been work banned by what you call your employers because you violated what you call the mutual agreement that you had in the contract. And some of you have work ban, which may be temporarily for 1 to 2 years. You cannot change. Yes, also sometimes we have negative reports in the labor system. Yes, your current employer may put a negative report in what you call the labor system. So you may get a little bit, find it hard for you to do what you call change of sponsorship. So that one, it becomes what we call a non-financial cost that will implicate or that will delay the process of change of sponsorship. Let us try to look at the legal risks and sponsor objections. Yes, most of you underestimated what we call the legal issues and sponsorship objection. Even though Qatar allows sponsors change without what we call the consent after 1 year or end of the contract, some employers may still file what complaints or retaliate accusation of absconding. And when an employer reports what we call a retaliating accusation of absconding, then that means in that kind of regard, he may be object to change your sponsorship. This can delay what you call or cancel what you call your transfer. We'll look at claims of unfinished work or dues. You find in those kind of claims, you find that you may not change sponsorship in one or the other. Let us try to look at housing and transport laws. Yes, most of you will agree with me that then your current sponsor provides free accommodation or transportation. May lose it once you switch. Yes, definitely. That may be. Yes, replacing this may own what you call cost. For example, some employers may say, I'm switching, but I'm not willing to give you what you call housing, or I'm not giving you what you call transportation. Depending on what you call the location, I'll be giving you work, but I'll not be able to give you this. Depending on what kind of mutual agreement that both of you've agreed upon. So you find that there is a situation whereby you have to look for room by yourself, situation whereby you have to provide transportation by yourself. So you find this one financially, it will impact you as a person. Let's look at what you call a work permit and visa issue receipts. If the employer or what you call the new sponsor does not complete your transfer properly, then you may have what you call invalid work permit, or sometimes you may be subjected to what you call fines and deportation. Yes, this is where most of you've fallen into trouble, especially you are changing sponsorship and this new company does not complete the process of what you call change of sponsorship. The new company does not finish up the formality. The new company does not give in all the documents that are required, and that is a mistake. Yes, most of you, that is where you are being subjected to what you call fines and what you call deportation. And some of you, you've gone out of the country in such kind of scenario because of those issues. You remember, in any mistakes in contract abroad and metrash process may delay what you call the RICO process. Yes, details that should be put in the metrash and also contract should be contrary, should be the same details that are matching. So you find that most of the times that those would lay it up and a little bit, it becomes what you call hidden cost. We look at recruiting agents or middleman charges. Yes, some third party may ask for processing fee, illegal commissions 1,000 to 3,000 to help change sponsorship. However, to this situation, this may be illegal, but however, still to say it will depend on what kind of contractual agreement that you both of you've definitely agreed with that kind of person. Hope I've tried to share something for you, for a person who was asking me that question, hidden costs that may delay